I was calling on Speedo when I was selling ads for Condé Nast W magazine, and Speedo was coming out with a line of sportswear. And they were planning to advertise it in fitness-type magazines, and I went up to them and I said 2 words: what if? What if we treated your sportswear like it was high fashion, and we could have a fashion show around a swimming pool at a nice hotel? You could invite Michael Phelps because he's part of your team, you're paying him to be the spokesperson for Speedo, and we could get some press around it. And they did, and I got some advertising that was not in the normal way of getting ads. And so when I met Michael at this event, I said to him, you know, everyone says you're so successful in the water because you're tall and your feet are huge and you've got this lung capacity. I'm guessing there's something else to it. And he said, yeah, years ago my coach said to me, hey Michael, are you willing to work out on Sundays? Michael said, yeah. He goes, great, we just got 52 more workouts than your competitors, because most people take Sundays off.
Now the takeaway is, what can you do that your competition isn't willing to do or isn't thinking to do?
The old way of selling is to push your message out. That's what commercials do. They interrupt your programming. Even an ad in a magazine is pushing. But when you tell a story, you pull people in. People go from listening to data in their left brain to, oh, you're going to tell me a story? Oh, maybe it'll be interesting, maybe even entertaining.
You can think of yourself as Yoda in the movie Star Wars, right? Your client is the hero in the story, whether it's a client you're trying to get or a client that you've already gotten and you're describing how you help them. And you're either the Sherpa or Yoda in Star Wars to get them up.
The person who tells the best stories becomes irresistible, because when you are irresistible, you're tugging at people's heartstrings, and that's what causes them to open the purse strings.
So when my client Martin came to me, I had him do this exercise, and he said, you know, for me, this really resonated because I was born in South America, but I grew up in the Netherlands. And when I turned 18, my parents took me back to South America and dropped me off naked in the Amazon jungle to survive for 2 weeks, because in my culture, that's a rite of passage into manhood. I said, wow, that's quite a story. Let's work on that for your pitch to get your startup funded. Okay, what lessons did you learn in the Amazon jungle? He goes, well, I learned how to focus and persevere and pivot. And I'm like, fantastic. And when he got in front of investors, he told that story and he said, and I've taken those lessons from the Amazon jungle into the concrete jungle of being an entrepreneur. And he got his startup funded because the investor said, wow, if that guy can survive the Amazon jungle, he'll figure out anything that goes on in this world. So that's a little example of a good story. And why is it a good story? It's got 4 parts, and we're going to go into this in detail throughout the next 2 days. Exposition is the first part. The who, what, where, when. Paint the picture. In this case, when Martin was practicing this with me, sometimes he would forget to say, in my culture, it's a rite of passage to do this to children. I said, if you don't say that, it sounds like child abuse. Oh, right, okay. So not too much exposition and not too little, but really let them know he's 18, he's in the jungle, all that stuff, right? The problem is clearly he's naked for 2 weeks and has to figure this out. The solution is he does it. He learns these 3 life lessons: focus, pivot, persevere. And now the last part, the resolution. He got his startup funded from telling that story. And that resolution part of storytelling, 90% of the people will not do that. And so if you, start telling stories and have that structure of painting the picture, give us a framework. If you're going to talk about a client you helped, tell us how long, it was in 2015, where it was, what their problems were, what solution you came up with, and what is life like now after working with you. That's the resolution. And then it becomes a much more compelling way for people to go, oh, I trust them, I like them, and I can see myself in that story. And guess what? The closing question is very different now. It's not a hammer. It literally is, does that sound like the kind of journey you'd like to go on too? And I want to leave you with one final story, which is all about this passion to not give up. 6 years ago, I met Françoise Gillot, who was Paloma Picasso's mother. And she was with Picasso in the 40s in Paris, and he was an artist and she was an artist. He was 60, she was in her 20s. And during the war, she told me there was a shortage of canvases. And as she's showing me around her apartment, she said, there's some Picasso paintings, here's one I did back then. And we would paint over our paintings because we didn't have enough canvases. But the urge to create was so great that we would paint over our paintings. And she goes, the one you're looking at is the 5th one. I think my favorite is the 3rd one underneath it. No one's ever going to see that. But it lives in her head, and now a little bit in me telling that story. So I want to invite all of you to think of yourselves as artists who tell stories as a way to sell a product that helps save lives. And when you do that, and you're asked to paint over your masterpiece the next time, whether it's a proposal you put out, or there's a new person that got hired and you have to start over, you don't mind because you realize many, many artists have had to paint over their masterpieces. And so I'm going to be like Picasso when I pitch and become the Picasso of pitches, because the world needs what you have to offer. So let's go out there, tell great stories that pull people in and save lives. Thanks.